Fine. 1 minute. Yeah, recording is get starting. Fine. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located. Welcome back to another interesting episodes from Data Analytic Group, Global Fabric Data is DP600 related. So we started this group as a data professional related to the strengthen this Microsoft Fabric tech stack like DP600, PL300, and many other which is comes under the Microsoft tech stack. So as a part of a series, it's around 4.5 hours. So we have to bear with us. But today we are going to discuss about planning and implementing the data analytics. And it's a complete step-by-step process. Okay. The first speaker wise to the last speaker, all are well experts on their domains, Microsoft Fabric and any another. We are going to discuss about implementation and manage of semantic models, exploring, analyzing the DAX and other tools, and so on as a part of the series. So four excellent speakers as a part of the first speaker, Girish Gulka. He's going to get started with the Lakehouse, and he's well expertise, 15 plus years of experience on cloud architecting part, and also certified DP 600, 700, and so on. So whom we are going to discuss, I mean, like who for this course here, who for this sessions, DP600 journey. Suppose if you are a BI developer or data engineer or analyst, this is the right place. You are at the right place. So please, if you have any queries, we are happy to assist. You can post your queries in the chat. We are happy to do that. And I will also share the community links in the chat. So if you're interested, please join there and get to know updates on accordingly. So as a part of the first session, Girish, as I said, he's in 15 years of data and analytics space working on it, and he's joining from Canada for today. Girish, I'm handing over the stage to you. So please get started with the first GP600 study group topic.
Thank you, Rajendra, for that warm introduction and welcome everyone. I'm very glad to be as a speaker over here. Uh, to start with, let me just share my slide and let me know if everyone is able to see that.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. So today we are going to cover about Microsoft Fabric end-to-end thing, right? So I'll be covering the topic called Lakehouses in depth. So how we are going to do is we are going to do a session, a presentation, as well as we are going to do the demo apart from this. Okay. Before that, let me just already Rajendra has given my intro, so I'm not going to deep dive into this. You can just find me on LinkedIn whenever you are free. So what we are going to cover today in the first 1 hour is we're going to see what exactly the Microsoft Fabric is, then what exactly the Lakehouse inside Microsoft Fabric is, and then we will be also doing some implementation of Dataflow Gen2 as well as orchestration with the help of the data pipeline. And apart from that, we will be also using a notebook to create a Fabric uh, pipeline. At the end, we can have some Q&A session if time permit, or else the next session will be continued. Now, what exactly the Microsoft Fabric is? It's an end-to-end platform. Initially, what we used to do is we used to have segregated platforms. So before Fabric, it was Azure Data Factory and Power BI and Azure Synapse as a three separate thing. Whereas what Microsoft had done is they have integrated all those three into one particular SaaS tool, right? So it has all the 7 workloads from lakehouses, data engineering, data science, Power BI, real-time intelligence, and so on. So we will be covering first at the data lakehouses in detail. So what Fabric, how does the Fabric stores data is it has one leg at the back end. So one leg is nothing but it's ADLA Gen2. So Azure Data Lake Gen2 aligned with that Fabric account, and all those data will be stored in your one leg. Second thing is whatever data you're storing, it will be mostly stored into open format, which is delta pocket format. Okay. The beauty of this is when you store the data in one uniform format, what happens is the tools which are like data lake or warehouse or database, everything can access those stored data. Okay. So it's initially what we used to do is whenever we store the data in, let's say, SQL database, it has the two files, MDF and LDF created. Also, if we have some other database, it has their own format, right? So they cannot cross talk with each other. Whereas when the data is in one lake, and since the backend data is stored in the delta packet format, what happens is since the Microsoft Fabric is designed in such a way that all of their load can get the data. So it can be accessed through Power BI, it can be accessed through SQL, it can be accessed to Spark and KQL as well, right? So one copy, it can be accessed by all of the other streams. Second thing is it also supports shortcut. So shortcut is something that, let's say, for example, you have some files which are stored not in your Fabric setting, but it is stored outside Fabric. So what you can do is you can just create a shortcut to that particular file system or that particular storage, and you can get it as a, just like a how we do a shortcut on the desktop. You can access it directly. Okay. Now, other thing with respect to one lake is you can access the files either in the table or using Azure Block File Storage System path or through the API, wherever it is applicable. So it's very easy for accessing, but it is also hard for the governance because you need to have proper governance in place. Then only you can able to access. So governance happens at different level. Okay. So first is a tenant. Okay. So tenant is something that, let's say, for example, an organization has their own, let's say, website or a domain name. So that domain name can be aligned to a tenant. Now, under that tenant, what we do is we create the capacity unit. So capacity unit is something with respect to the size of how the fabric uh, utilization will be done. So how much data it will be stored, how much data it can be processed and all. So it supports from F2 to F2048 capacity. Okay. Initially, before Fabric, it was Power BI capacity. So it was calling P SKUs. Now it is calling F SKU for Fabric. And then after capacity, we have the either domain level or we can skip down domain level and we create the workspace level. And then under workspace, we can have multiple items. Now, these things works. I mean, how we can do is we can also provide access to the item level, and we can also provide to the one leg catalog. So when you provide access to the one leg catalog, even if you don't have access to the item level, you can access those data which are present in that one leg catalog. So the data governance is very tricky over here. In order to give access, sometimes you have to provide access from both the side, not only one side work for it. Now, let's get into much more deeper into what exactly the lakehouse is. So lakehouse is something with respect to fabric is it stores both structured and unstructured data. So structured data, it can be any structured data like managed table and all table related attributes it can store. It enforces the asset property. And second thing is it stores the file system, right? So what file system are there we will be covering in our demo, but it stores raw files like CSV, Parquet, image, media, or any other format. We can also design a folder structure. So for example, if we want to structure in such a way that we are getting a daily load, right? And we want to copy those files from different location into that file. or we ask the source team that you push the file in that location. So we can just design like raw and then today's date and then the file, or raw and whatever structure they want to follow, they can follow. And based on that, we can write a notebook code in such a way that it can consume those files accordingly. Now, let's go to a demo, right? So what I'm going to show you is a quick demo. Okay. So what I have done is I have created a Fabric Data Day workspace over here, and I have created a Lakehouse over here. So how we can create Lakehouse is you can just click on new, and you can find multiple items over here, which can be notebook, pipeline, warehouse, database, KQL for real-time intelligence and all. So all the thing you can find over here, and you can just select that particular item what you need to create, and you create it. So I just created a lake house. I just given a name, and it has created. Now, what exactly it has inside is, right now I have uploaded the sample files because I don't want to waste time in the demo for uploading and creating the lakehouse files, but I'll be doing the other exercise in front of you. So what it does is it has a raw folder created, and under raw folder we have the files created, the CSV file created. Now, one thing we can do directly is we can just load the file from, let's say, from here, to just right click and load table, load new table, and it will just create the table. Okay, so I don't want to see, or I don't want to write a code, right? So just think as you are a analyst and you want to analyze the file. You're not concerned about how the data is, and how if you want to, I mean, you don't have to worry about the data engineering side, right? So in that case, you just load this file into a table and you can analyze it in the table. So when you load the table, what happens is a table is created over here under the table section, right? And if you see this particular thing, it has the table format. Okay. Now, all the data which is stored over here is stored in the delta table format. So what do you mean by delta table format is it creates the log file of delta log, and the data is stored in the Parquet format. Now, what happens is when you do any operations, right? Like insert, update, delete, or let's say you run some vacuum command or optimize command. So in that case, what happens is it creates a log of that particular command, and it creates multiple versions of the files, right? And how those Spark run, I mean, how those data lake Spark read those data is it it collects all those Parquet format, and then it show you the results like over here. Now, one more thing is, since this is stored as a Parquet format, it's not that we cannot access it through our SQL endpoint, right? So how we can do is you can just click over here on analyze data with, and you can click on this SQL analytics endpoints. So when you click on that, a new window will be open. It's a data lake window only, but it is open as a SQL endpoint. So you can write the query. I have just written a sample query so that we can run and see what exactly it has. So I can just directly run the query, and it will find both the query results in the lower section, just like how we see the Azure SQL results on the portal. So this is result one, which is showing the top 100 rows, and then we have the result two. which shows our total revenue by region. So this is at high level how we have this particular lakehouse created. Now, next is, let me just go back to our presentation. Yeah. So next is something called as medallion architecture. So at a high level, I can just tell you that what medallion architecture is. We are not going to implement in detail, but what happens is when we get when you're working on a large scale analytic system, at that time we cannot do everything in just one particular folder or one particular database. So what we do is we create a structure in such a way that first we ingest the data into a landing zone, which which can be called as a raw or ingest zone, and then what we do is we transform the data into, let's say, silver layer, right? So while doing that, we what we do is we don't delete any of the data in the raw landing zone. We just dedupe and typecast and whatever transformation we have to do, we do it at the silver layer. Okay. Now, there what happens is the uniqueness of record has been maintained, and none of the data is corrupted. Or let's say, for example, if there is any null category and you want to get that row, but you don't want to uh, miss that particular category, right? So what you do, instead of null, you just assign an unknown category or some default value to it, so that it the row is not skipped from the uh, execution, and it will be shown as an unknown category in the system. And then at last we have the gold layer. So gold layer is something, let's say for example, we have a data with respect to sales date, and sales date, it has, let's say, date, month, right? And then timestamp. In timestamp it has HHMM, SS, and then milliseconds as well, right? So we don't need that layer of granularity. So what we do is we just try to remove those seconds part, or we also try to remove the hours part as well. We just need by, let's say, day data. We don't want to see the time data, or in some cases is addresses is are there, and in addresses we don't want to see the detailed street address. We just want to know the city of that particular sales in order to analyze. So we just remove those things in the gold layer and try to create some measures, and it will be used by the reporting team, or it will be used for the AI and other stuff. Now, with that, I will also move to the next part, is a Dataflow Gen2. So what exactly the Dataflow Gen2 is, it is similar if many of you have worked on Power BI. In Power BI, we write the Power Query, right? So it is similar to this, but the only difference, or the major difference I would say, is it writes at the destination. Okay. So let's say for example you get the data source, it has, let's say, 150 plus connector. From we connected from Lakehouse, we connected from CSV, we connected from APS, we connected from different external sources as well, and then we try to write the query in Power Query using M language, and we try to filter it out the most of the thing which is needed, do some transformation, and then once all the transformation are done, what happens in Power BI is it accesses the Power data flow, right? So here what it does is, instead of accessing that Power data flow, it stores the data in a separate table. Okay, so here we are going to just do a sample demo for creating that particular data flow and store into the bronze product information. Okay, now let me just go back to okay, so now let me just go back to the workspace. What I will do is I'll just create a new item, and I will just name it. Just bear with me. Yeah, so I'll just name it, let's say, ingest, and then products underscore data flow. So what it does is it will create a data flow similar to how we see in the Power Query when we do the Power BI's transformation. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this particular data flow with an CSV import, which I already have in my GitHub location. So what I will do, just paste this and say next. So once I click on next, it will just show me the sample data of, let's say, of 100 to 200 rows of my product information. Okay, now once I have that, what I will do is I will just do some transformation, a basic transformation, like let's say adding an ingestion date or doing some removing some uh, values from here which I don't need, right? So that I will be doing. Okay, so first I need to remove the dates. I mean, remove the values. So I will do the replace value, and instead of USD space, I just wanted to remove that because I know that this data is contains only USD. So I don't want to have that because it will have issue with the conversion, data conversion. So after this, I can just do the data conversion and I want to change it to the decimal value. Right? Now, after this, I also need the product name. I remove the product name which are not required. So what I will do, just remove blank and let it go. Right? And on top of it, what I will do is I will just try to add a new date. I mean, new column over here. So what I will do is I'll go to the add column and add a custom column. Let's say, for example, I add ingest date and I give that formula and I say that, okay, I need this as a date time. So whenever I'm loading the data, I want to understand how exactly that, when exactly the data has been loaded. Okay. Now, once I do all those transformation, what I can do is I can go to the destination. I just click here and destination. I need to add an existing one. So let me see if it tries to create a new one. I don't want to create a new one. I will just create the one lake catalog. I just select from the one lake catalog. I need the data lake to be selected. So when I select this, there are multiple options we can do. So this is my sales data, fabric data day, sales Lakehouse I have created. And once I select that, it will ask me that whether I need to create a new table or what. So what I will do is, let me just confirm it's products. So I'll just rename this as a products. Get the TBO schema. So we have the already one table created, which is sales row, and we have created the product. It's a new table, and then just go next. We can do the mapping. It has auto done the mapping. If we want, we can add the settings as well. So once this is done, uh, our data flow will be executed. And what happens is it will also insert the data into the product table. So what I will do, I'll just go to the home and let's say save and run. Now, when we do save and run, we can see the data should be loaded into our Lakehouse. So this is the SQL Analytics. I want to see the data lake format, and I need to refresh this because sometimes it takes time. It's still loading. So till this particular thing is loading, we can do is just close it. Yeah, and you see this particular product table has been created. Right? So whatever data we saw, it has also added the new. It has new. I selected a wrong table, but if you see the product table is created and it has also added the ingest date when I executed from the Dataflows Gen2. Right? Now let's go back to our demo, to the slide. So what we have seen is we have seen how we create a data flow and how that particular data flow can connect to the CSV format. And we can also create access any other data sources, how we do in Azure Data Factory and other integration tool and Power BI as well. And then we can do the transformation and we can load it to the destination. Once you do publish and refresh, it automatically runs the Dataflow Gen2 and then it executes. Now, the other part of data integration is scheduling, right? So what happens is we have written the code, we have written the uh, data flow sorry, we have written the data flow gen2, we have written the pipeline, the notebooks, and now we want to do a scheduling. So for scheduling we need to use the pipeline, but before this pipeline what I need to do is I need to create a notebook in order to add it to the execution, right? So what I will do is just at a high level, what we are going to discuss is uh, we are going to create a copy activity, which will just copy the data from the GitHub location to the Azure, to the Fabric storage. Then we will also run them in execution, I mean, in sequence, right? So first the data will be copied, then we'll run the notebook and the data flow as well. So all these things we can run, and in the data pipeline we can also do the scheduling. So I will be also showing that. And one more thing in this, what I'm going to show you is how we can execute the notebook not only from with the ID, but also with the service principal. Okay, not service workspace ID, not service principal, because service principal will take a lot of time to configure. So what I will do is I'll just go back to the uh, workspace, and in the workspace setting I will just add a service principal for now. So how we need to do that is we need to go over here and workspace identity. So I'm just talking about service principal again and again, but it's a kind of a service principal only, but it is at the workspace level. So when we create the workspace ID, what it does is it automatically, oh, I did not give the name. I need to give the name properly. Let me just see. Okay, I need to give this description. And then, yeah, so it gave us the name that Fabric Data Day 2026, a demo. So this is particular workspace ID, and I will be now creating what I will do. I'll just try to import the notebook instead of writing it because I'm already ready. Let me just pull that. So, so I'll explain you the notebook at high level, and then we can create a data pipeline. So at high level, how the notebook works is it connects to the compute power of Fabric and it executes the transformation logic, whatever we have specified, and then it runs it accordingly. Okay. So now I will just try to connect to a standard uh, session. So just to let you know that the notebook can be executed in 4 different language at a high level. One is Spark, PySpark, Scala, then SQL and R. Whereas we can also run it on Python and T-SQL. But at the T-SQL level, we just get the read only, or we have very limited operation we can do with the help of T-SQL. So I'd recommend that whenever you people are writing the notebook, it will be better to write in PySpark. It has because it has much more flexibility. So one more thing you need to make sure that when you create a notebook, you can just try to connect this notebook to the Lakehouse, because sometimes what happens is when you use the references of that particular Lakehouse, if it is not into that notebook, it does not execute it. Right. So what I will do, I'll just add this particular Lakehouse into my notebooks connection. Okay, let it stop because I wanted to add it. And then once this particular is added, we can just relearn the notebook. So what it does is, let me just delete the schema again because I wanted to reload this. Okay, this is from, and this is what. Okay, so let it run. So just run all the cells. So it will run one by one and it will just try to execute the data over here. Okay, so it has is executing the cell aggregation. So most of the script should be executed. Now, what I will do is I will just create the data pipeline. But before that, let us see what exactly we have got over here. Edit. Yeah, so it has created a raw table again, and it has loaded the data into 2 different tables. One is sales silver and one is the revenue code. I know this is very short and it might be very confusing, but trust me that it's not easy to write the code. Right. Now, let me just go back to the data pipeline and I will show you the real-time scenario. What happens if you're going to run it. Let me just create a new item and select the data pipeline. And let me just give create. So in this pipeline, what I will do is I'll just create one. I'll just start with the copy assistant. I don't need a copy assist, right? I need a blank canvas. Yeah. And then I need a copy data because I wanted to copy the data from, let's say, products data. Okay. And I wanted to copy from, say, rocket. So yeah, with the sales data. So this is just for a sample how it works. Don't worry. And I need to copy it to the Lakehouse which we created. So I'll just browse all and I'll just select Lakehouse which we have created. So I'll just go to the one lake catalog and select the Lakehouse which we created. And in that, what I will do is I'll just create a table and let me just add a new table under DPO and let's say sample data flow and sales. And then I'll just do an append and or we can do an upsert. We don't want to do append. And there are other settings if you want, we can do that. When we are doing upsert, what we need to do is we need to add the key columns by which we need to do it as an upsert. So it will automatically read the data from the file from the source. It's not reading, so let me just add order underscore ID and then add new column. I need product underscore ID. Okay, and then once this is there, I will we can do, if you want, we can do a setting that how many time it can retry. We can enable it do and to stage the data and all, so that we can do. Okay, now second thing what I will do is I will add one more activity called data flow. Now here what I will do is I will connect to the data flow which we created. Okay, and we wanted to run this data flow after this succession. Okay, right now it is not interdependent, even though if it is the first step is failed, the second step can be passed, but right now we want to make it dependable. That's why I just created on pass on success, this should execute it. And third thing is I want to run the notebook, right? So what I will do after this success, I want to run the notebook. Okay, now in the notebook what I will do is I'll just pass the notebook which we have already. And let's say whether it checks the connection. Yeah, transform sales. That's it, right? Okay, now wait, let me just add a connection because this is the new connection we are going to create using workspace identity. And let me just do it as a data day demo. Okay, so it has, I hope it has created. No, it has created with the same name. Not sure why it did not update it, but yeah, let us try to run it and see what exactly it does. I am sure that first two should uh, pass and the notebook should fail. We have any idea? Okay, pipeline output. Just save this. Okay, let me just append it just for a demo purpose because again, I don't want to waste time for this fix. The one in duty to save. Okay, just to save. Okay, now it has been saved, but I hope first two will pass and the notebook will fail. Why? I will tell you with real-time fix how we can do that. So till this is running, I'll just go back to the presentation and go back to the next slide so that we will be continuing. Okay, so in the data factory pipeline, what we can do is we can orchestrate the notebooks, copy activity, as well as Dataflows Gen2. So all the three can be added for the orchestration purpose. Now we will also see at a high level how we can schedule them as well. But just to see what is next is just to compare with respect to all the three different type of data engineering things is Dataflow Gen2, then pipeline, and the Spark notebook. So if you are core into writing a Python code, I would recommend that you go for PySpark notebook because you have more control on it, right? You can do much more detailed transformation on that. Whereas when you have low code or a lesser coding knowledge, or if you're coming from the uh, Power BI background, I would recommend you to start with Dataflow Gen2 for the transformation. And then once you have gone through that particular experience, slowly transition into PySpark because PySpark is very important as when you work on large scale enterprise, they want you to write the code in PySpark instead of Dataflow Gen2 because it Dataflow Gen2 has its own disadvantages when we are running at a high scale, right? So that is number one. Number two is data flow is good when you don't have larger data, right? So for example, if you have, let's say, 500 rows or 1000 rows, it's fine. We can deal with it using the data flow gen 2. But when we have complex data, let's say you are daily processing 50,000 to 1 million rows, And then I would recommend that write a notebook code because it is much more faster as compared to data flow. Whereas pipeline is something that you want to just do a copy pasting kind of thing with less number of transformation. That time we use pipeline. Or sometimes what happens is we want to read the file. So let's say, for example, if you're reading the file through a pipeline activity and you want to decide which particular notebook you want to run, whether it is the product notebook, whether it is a sales notebook, whether it is, let's say, a different notebook. So for that, you can use the pipeline in order to navigate or make a decision for that. So that's when we normally use the pipeline, as well as we use it for the orchestration purpose. Okay, now let me just go back to the demo. Oh, it's still running. See, data flow is still running, and I hope it fails. So let's wait for it. Okay, so now let's move to the next part. We'll just see the orchestration once this particular run is done, and then I will just fix it and then do the orchestration so that we don't waste time in redoing all those things, right? So we can do orchestration in data pipeline. We can do on arrival of file. We can do, let's say, for example, we can do on particular trigger or particular timestamp that every hour we want to run. We can do in that particular manner as well. At last, let me just see if I have anything. Yeah, we have already seen this. Mm. So we have already seen this, but just to explain you how PySpark work is at the background, it uses the Apache Spark for the Lakehouse, and it tries to read the data from the Parquet table or from the CSV table, wherever you have defined. Since I have very less time for my session, let me go back to the notebook, right? So now this particular notebook has been failed, as I said. Now why it has been failed is reason one, it has failed for the authentication purpose, right? So, uh, so if I run this notebook from my ID, it should run because you have seen that I have ran this particular same notebook from my ID and it executed successfully. So why it did got failed over here is due to the permission. Now I do have permission, but this particular notebook is running not through my ID, but it is running through the workspace identity, right? So that's why it is failing. So what I need to do is I need to go to the notebook, right? And I need to go to a permission and I need to add the permission of my workspace, workspace identity. So I will do fabric data day. So it should, and that is my workspace name, fabric data day, right? So I will go back over here and I will go to the manage permission and go here and add user. I will add that user I have added, and I can say that this can only run, it cannot edit it, right? So I grant it and see it can read and execute, right? Now let me go back to the pipeline, and for this time what I will do, I know that these two are already executed. I will just deactivate them. I don't want them to run, right? So I'll just do deactivate, and then I will run this particular notebook. I will just save it and let us see how it does at this particular time. Now coming back to the demo is when we have to work on the lakehouse side, most of the time we need to uh, write the Python code. It's very important because we can read the data through SQL endpoints, but for modification and for transformation, it's very hard because just think as of as this particular data is stored in Lakehouse in the Parquet format, and it runs through the Spark engine, right? Whereas when it stores in the data warehouse, even though it is stored in the Parquet format, it uses the database engine, right, to process those files. So that's the difference, and that's why it's very important to use the PySpark over here instead of SQL. Now, okay, so this demo we are not going to go into detail, but we have saw that we have loaded those notebook in sequence, right? So how we do is we at a high level, what we do is we get the data from the source, we ingest it using the copy activity or through an source ingestion. Like we ask the source team to ingest the data from their system to our fabric location. Then we do the transformation in the lakehouse, right? And then we can either directly use the lakehouse to Power BI, or we can convert that lakehouse data and integrate to the data warehouse and then use into the Power BI, right? So it depends, because one main drawback of Lakehouse is it does not support the reference transactions. So for example, whenever we have, let's say in the sales table, we have item header and item detail, right? So the header item has to be referred into the detail item. So that referential thing is not possible into the Lakehouse. That's why we more depend on the warehouse on that side. And also we can do the denormalization and other stuff in both the places as well. Okay, so I hope this again fails. I need to check. I think I need to add more permission on it, I feel. I have just 6 minutes, so I'll just try to recap till the time it is there. It is failing, and it is failing to the. Oh, so again, I think I need to add more permission to that particular user. Just execution permission is not sufficient to that. So let me just add quickly and run it. And write permission. Sure. Not sure why it is asking this, but or maybe I need to check fabric data day. I need to add a new connection. Let's see why it could fail. So I need to add add new connection. Start DD. And then I'll just do the workspace identity and organization level. Like connect. It's added. I believe that that particular connection was referring to some another data flow, and that's why it was failing. But if it is more than 20 seconds, then it should pass. Okay, now coming back to the uh, what how we do is once we load it into the code layer, then we can either give it to the uh, direct lake house or direct lake semantic model, or we can also provide it to the data science team for further analysis. Okay, now with that, I think we should be able to answer a couple of questions based on the Lakehouse, that how the Lakehouse holds the one copy data and every other engine can read the same data which is presented in the data bucket format. Second thing is we can see how uh, we can saw the raw and other data selected, right? So the raw data in the table format is selected over here. We are also seeing the Dataflows Gen2 with low code, no code activity. Okay, so with that, okay, funny thing is this pipeline is failing again. I will not going to debug it, but yeah, I can show you the one which is working on my side. I have created one which is already working. So, so this is the same workflow. I normally have a copy of it, and this transformation should work. Okay. Any questions so far?
There are a few questions, Girish.
Okay.
Read it out for you. From Navneet, okay. What is the
Yeah.
difference between a data flow CI/CD and normal data flow? In which scenarios we should use the data flows or data pipeline?
So data flow CI/CD and normal data flow, right?
Normal data
So
flow.
yeah, so it's nothing but CI/CD is continuous integration, continuous deployment, where you integrate the data to your Git location, and you can integrate that and you can run that. So that's the only thing. And what was the other part?
In which scenario we should use data flow or data pipelines?
Data flow and data pipelines. So
Yeah,
data flow, yeah. So data flows are something which when we require a transformation, right? And we don't want to orchestrate the uh, details, right? At that time we use normal data flow. Whereas data pipeline, when we have more orchestration and when we have to integrate other data flows into it, right? At that time, we use the data pipeline. So we build the pipeline of multiple executors in the line, so that for when the first execute, the second will execute.
hope it is answered. And still, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. You can also speak with speaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions? One second.
Yeah. No need.
Navneet, you can unmute yourself. You can speak. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Uh, Actually, I have one question. Like, if any data pipeline is getting failed, can we set up any trigger or any alerts to our email or
Yeah.
Teams message? Like,
Yeah. We
and
can set up that as well.
so, if you can just quick demo for that, it will be better to us.
I sorry, but I don't think we have that particular time.
Okay.
But what we can do is if you go to the scheduling, right, we can
Mhm.
add a schedule and failure notification where we can add over here, right? So for example, we can add a schedule whether it is an interval base or whether it is a fixed base, right? So
Okay.
or some any other parameter if you want to add, we can add it. Since we have to cover this in 1 hour, it's very hard to explain each and everything. But yeah, we can do the scheduling part over here.
Okay, no worry. It's fine to me. Okay, I'll explore
Yeah,
separately for this. Thank you so
no,
much.
no worries. No worries. Any
Fine then.
other question?
Any other questions? Don't hesitate. Please unmute yourself. You can speak. Okay.
So
Yeah. Please unmute and you can speak. Swati.
Hi. Regarding the security things, for example, RLS and CLS, do we need to incorporate before this all these things, or once after every model is fine and the tables are ready, we can start doing the security things?
so security are at different level, right? So if you are talking about RLS and data masking, you
Mm.
can do only the when the objects are created. But
Okay.
if you want to do at workspace level thing, you can do through the groups,
Okay.
security groups. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fine then. Thank you so much, Girish, for joining in at this time.
No,
Can you
no
hear me,
worries.
right?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you. Thank
It's
you.
a
Thank you
nice
so much
session.
for that.
Thanks for sharing. In a 1 hour, you covered most of the activities as a part of Data Lake. So looking forward for many other collaborations with you. So thank you. Thanks for your time and have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for inviting me as well. Bye bye.
Thank you, Girish. Thank you. Yeah. With this,